So we've got another BMW on the channel, and this time it's no hatchback or saloon. It's the third generation BMW X5, and if you haven't already spotted this, it isn't any ordinary X5 with a diesel or petrol engine. It's a hybrid. Yes, I didn't know BMW produced an X5 hybrid in 2015 either. So let's jump into the review and see what this is about. Well, first off, I want to give a shout out to the owner of this car, Sanka, for lending it to me so I could do this review. He is currently the managing director of SK Logistics, which is a contractor for distribution centres. So if you are in need of any additional staff, make sure to contact him. I'll leave his email and Instagram in the description box below. And so back to the review, and I'm here underneath the bonnet. As usual, it's starting to become a trend and reoccurrence with BMW products. But in this particular BMW X5, we've got a 4-cylinder engine. And I've noticed, I hope you've noticed it too, but it's quite crammed towards the front axle. And I'm not too sure if this is BMW trying to achieve their 50-50 weight distribution thing that they love to brag about. But nonetheless, the engine fits in here without much issue, and since it's a hybrid, the electric motor is located on the left side of the car where the charge port is. And so that nicely brings me onto the model variant that I've got in front of me, and it's the 2015 BMW X5 40e M Sport with the 2-litre petrol engine that's currently pushing 242 brake horsepower and 258 pounds-foot torque to all the wheels, as it is all-wheel drive. Since it's a hybrid, the electric motor provides a shockingly low 90 miles of range, but that's kind of expected as hybrid production back in 2015 wasn't so major or so big. Moving towards the rear of the BMW X5, and the one thing I love about this car is the fact it's got a split tailgate, bit like you find on a Range Rover Vogue. But let's say you open the boot by using the button on your key. The way to close it is you have to hold that button down. I don't understand why you can't just press it. I guess this is something to take up with BMW on a separate occasion, but nonetheless, you can always press the button on the boot as well. So as for styling, there hasn't really been a notable change from the previous generation within the exterior elements, since they are based on the same platform. What BMW have done instead is focused on cutting some excess weight from its unibody and introducing an aluminium bonnet, which I think should have been on the second generation. Nonetheless, since the design section is now over, let's talk about purchasing costs. Back in 2015, a brand new BMW X5 40e would set you back roughly 58 grand. After 6 years and a whole load of depreciation later, these cars are now selling for roughly 25 grand on the second-hand car market. So let's say if you bought this car new back in 2015 and you owned it for that 6-year period, you would have lost 5.5 grand every single year. But there is one incentive. Since it's a hybrid, there is no road tax, so you've saved a little there. As for the rear seats, I can't complain. There is loads of room in the back of here. Underneath, it's pretty much identical to the previous generation BMW, but they've managed to squeeze in a little bit more space by removing some bits and bobs and making the body squarer. I also love the fact that you get cup holders in the armrest, and it's covered by this lid, and you have to press the button to open it. Nice little neat feature, and it makes the armrest look a little bit more slick. Jumping over to the main half of the interior, and it's very similar to the interior of the 2019 BMW 1 Series that I reviewed a couple of weeks ago. So quite a clean and conservative design, but there's no special sense of superiority like you find in a Range Rover or like a Volvo or like a Mercedes GLE. Something unique to the BMW X5 40e is this button right down here in the center console that says eDrive, and what this button does is control the drive modes for the electric motor. The electric drive modes are Auto eDrive. I think that's quite self-explanatory as to what that does. Max eDrive, which means you'll be utilizing the electric motor the most, and then you've got the save mode, which means it will save the battery for future intended use. So that means there's a combined total of 7 different driving modes in this car. You've got your free eDrive mode, and then the 4 other normal modes, which are Sport Plus, Sport, Comfort and Eco Pro mode. I think that's quite funny and somewhat ridiculous. In terms of the iDrive system, in all BMW X5s across the range, you get this 10-inch display as standard, which is great, but I still feel like the systems used in the Audi Q7, VW Touareg and the Mercedes GLE are just a little bit more intuitive compared to this. But nonetheless, there are some interesting features within this infotainment system, like for example, under settings in tailgate, it gives you 5 options to choose which height you would like to open your boot at. The block system that they've used isn't very clear, but you kind of get the gist of it. Another cool feature in the system settings under charging this time, and what this does, it gives you the option to choose how you would like to charge your battery when you plug it in. So do you want to charge it immediately, or do you want to charge it with the off-peak tariff, or with the off-peak tariff with a set departure time? It gets a little confusing, but if you know what you're doing, you'll be fine. Okay guys, now let's go for a little drive, and first impressions, it is huge. Such a big car to step into. Let's just take it out apart. There we go. So when you start the car, it starts in E mode, so there's no noise, and it's so bizarre. We are currently in, let's go into Eco Pro mode, and then on the E drive, let's go into, no, stay with the Max E drive. But it is so blimmin' big. It's a bizarre experience. I don't usually drive cars that are this high up, but you do feel like you are the king of the road. It is slightly lower than, let's say, a Range Rover. This is kind of like the, I still want to go fast, but I want to go off-roading type of car. A Range Rover is more, you know, town-esque, city-esque type of car. I shouldn't say that. This is more of an Autobahn weapon, let's just say. Oh God, it drives so smoothly. This car's done 65,000 miles and it still feels as fresh as you like, to be honest. The steering is really light in Eco Pro mode, but as soon as you whack it up to Sport, the steering starts to get a little bit heavier. In Sport Plus mode, that's pretty much Sport mode, but with traction control off. I don't even know why they class that as a mode, but that's just BMW for you in a nutshell. But I love the 10-inch display in this car. It's blimmin' huge, I tell you. Let's just whack it into reverse, see what maneuverability is like. Visibility is not that great, but this car does have a front camera, rear camera, so you're kind of all right, I guess. Yeah, when the engine turns off, it's so quiet. This is my first time driving a hybrid. I find it so bizarre, to be honest. This car is stage 1 tuned as well, so those figures that I mentioned earlier, they are way higher than expected. So, but I'm not going to be pushing this car today, so sorry guys. The M Sport steering wheel as well, one of the best without a doubt. Yeah, I'm not even giving it about 15% throttle and the car just wants to push, it wants to go. The paddle shifters, I hope they were a little bit bigger, but it's not that big of a deal, to be honest. We could get over it. I did recommend the X5 over the Range Rover Sport, and I still do. It's a fantastic car, proper enthusiast car, enthusiast SUV car even. And BMW don't mess about when it comes to SUVs. So that's the in-depth tour and review around the 2015 BMW X5. And to conclude, it is excellent to drive, really comfortable, quiet, good on fuel economy as well, and it's not too brash and sloppy. And obviously it is a well-rounded vehicle, but I just don't think it's the best. I hope you agree. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.